Hello, what's up guys? Welcome to the third episode of the CVUO podcast. Today we have Amina and Hassan talking about club funding. Enjoy.
Hello everyone. My name is Amina and I'm your current Student Services Commissioner of the Student Union. I am here today with Hassan, the club's coordinator, who also likes to refer himself as the president of CampusVibezUO Ottawa. And today we will be talking about clubs funding. So super fun stuff. Buckle up. It's going to be a journey.
I am the president of CampusVibezUO Ottawa. It's not a...
Well, sure.
Okay, yeah, so we're talking about club funding. For some of you already know, we have a new club funding process because by the time this podcast goes up, a few posts will have already been made in our socials. And hopefully we're trying to fix the mistakes of last year, or actually the last few years, and get a lot of clubs some money to host their events. And I think Amina and I have been working on it for like 2-3 months. A lot of it was waiting for it to get approved with the board and stuff, but it's been ongoing. So we're going to take it back to why we're changing last year's process. And what last year's process even was, because I feel like a lot of people were very unaware. Yeah?
I just wanted to say that, last year's process was pretty much non-existent, and I didn't know that until I became a commissioner, and I had to deal with last year's clubs funding files. So for, the clubs who are still waiting on the funding, you're about to know why it wasn't easy.
Yeah, it was, CVO was also not at all involved with last year. It was all, UOSU doing it. I'm, kind of, dodging responsibility, but...
No, it's also that there's, a lot of communication, between the different departments of the UOSU. I guess I feel like I'm calling out, UOSU on this one. Things are much better this year, but there's, a lot of, lack of communication between the execs and the board. The Student Life Committee didn't hardly ever met last year. They didn't even know what was going on with clubs funding. So I don't have access to the original form to know what were the clubs who even applied to clubs funding. It was super messy in general. There was a lot of lack of communication. We didn't know what was going on. We were super unclear on what was the amount of money allocated to it. The whole athletic fund situation. I didn't even know what was an athletic fund.
There was actually, since it was UOSU's first year, so club funding was kind of never made a priority, and it even launched in January or February, into the winter semester, and there was no funding available in the fall, and there was also the mandatory and non-mandatory fees and tuition, which made things harder. So there was a lot of things working against us last year, and this year we have some hindsight, and we've made it a priority to make sure club funding works. So I think this year we'll have a much better process, much better system, and then clubs will actually get their money. Because, like you said, some clubs have still not gotten any money, if any have.
It's happening actually as we're speaking. Banav is sitting the funds right now.
Okay, so the general process last year was there was a Google form, and there was 2 Google forms. One was for the athletic fund, and one was for the student life fund, and then clubs would apply for the athletic fund if they were doing athletic events, and then they would apply for the student life fund if they were just doing regular club events. But it was all done through Google form, and then I think GOSU got it, and they had a hard time reviewing all the applications in time. And like you said, the Student Life Committee wasn't meeting as often, so...
And I think at some point, whoever's editing this, they might need to cut this up, but the Student Life Committee, Babacar was part of the Student Life Committee.
Yeah.
They said they never approved any funding. So I think that at some point, the execs, I guess, had to make that decision on their own. It was super, I guess that was outlined. The Constitution refers to the club's good for clubs funding. So there was not, And the club's code was, as we say, terrible last year. Well, not terrible, because he wrote it, Hassan, but Jason, I guess. But still, it was terrible. So there was there was nothing outlined. Like the logistics of it were not figured out. It was fully improvised. The director of finances or the finance department had no idea what was going on. The clubs also had no idea what was going on. There was supposed to be
there was
separate fundings, but all the club fundings that were given out from the athletic fund. So there's no mention of the club's funding, even in the budget outline that they had last year. Nowhere does it say club's funding. So when I looked at all of these things, I was like, oh wow. As I was going through the applications, I thought, okay, this is this will not happen like this ever again. It's so messy that I guess I just fully jumped in and why we decided to have a club's funding process, because there wasn't any. It wasn't there was one that was kind of good or not. There was just not.
Yeah, so they put they wrote down something in the club's code about club funding, and basically it was you can apply and who cannot apply, and it was 3 lines or something. So there was no actual process or any rules or how much money a club could get or how much money they couldn't get. But this year we have all that. So enough about last year. That's why we're changing it, and we've been working on changing it since the beginning of the summer. And it's for anyone who wants to see the club funding process. It's going to be available on the CVUO website under club funding. Hopefully by this time this podcast comes out, but it's also available in the club's code at cvuo.ca/club registration. And what section?
5.
Yeah, section 5. It's long. It's the biggest part of the club's code.
It's 9 pages or 10.
Yeah, so we're really get into it, and it's super detailed, and we're hoping this goes on for a few years, and then club funding is never a mess again.
One of the things that I think helped this year is the fact that my position was created. So my position only handles clubs and services, and with my position being created, that means the student services committee was created, and that means the student services committee gets among other things to approve clubs, but also approve clubs funding. So I think it kind of helped to have those tasks kind of spread out in a way.
So in terms of putting this code together, or the funding process together, the main thing we looked at was actually other universities' clubs funding
Processes.
codes.
Yeah.
So a lot of the special general stuff where it's we're not going to fund illegal events and that kind of thing is just generally what all universities do. And then I think the big thing we could talk about is section 5.1.8, where it's the following funding requests will not be considered.
Yep.
Because we did get some funding requests that fall under these categories last year that were approved. Do you want to get into details of why each of them? I don't think we don't have time for that.
No, it's just to say that I know a lot of people are going to have questions about this and be oh, but what if this event is this or that? So I guess I know at the end of the day the committee goes on a case by case basis, but there will be creating kind of a guideline thing that kind of puts these sections to from a theory part to a practice. This is an example of an event that should not be approved.
Yeah.
A bake sale, that's not something we're gonna fund.
Yeah, because the whole point of the bake sale is for your club to make money.
Yeah, exactly.
So we're trying to stop any sort of scammy events or embezzlement or execs pocketing money, that kind of thing. So that's what this is here for.
Or buying merch.
Yeah, and then selling it, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So that's section 5.1.8, which is a bit unique to us, and so there's that. And then yeah.
No, I just want to say, clubs should really read this beforehand. It's very detailed, really detailed.
Yeah, and it'll help us, or help the student services committee and us in going faster and approving them if we don't get a bunch of wrong applications, so the clubs can get money faster. And then section 5.19 is the first mention of our tier system, which is also very, very unique to us, and we're going to talk about it later in the podcast. But going down is a club and association. In section 5.1.10, the clubs and associations must have a bank account for their organization to accept funds. This is something that is also new from last year, because Amina found out that it was a huge mess trying to give clubs their money without having their bank information already. Right?
Yes. So, I think, right now we're kind of, saying that clubs must have a bank account. I was somewhat lenient with the club's funding from last year, the file, just because the club's funding, policy didn't come out until, after.
Yeah.
We went through those, and,
it came out 2 days ago or 3 days ago.
Yeah, it was Sunday, I guess, or Monday. And point is, that's, why, and then it encourages clubs to, kind of, in a way, get their shit together and get a bank account. Because, if we see that it's, a person's, name on the bank account, not only will we refuse it, but, the director of finance will not make that payment.
Yeah.
Our director of finance is strict as far as that goes. And
this is, again, to stop people from embezzling money, because you're not going to take money into your own personal bank account. You're going to take it into a club bank account.
And there was issues with clubs that when they said our president ended up being a shitty person and they have access to all their bank account, and there's no way we can do anything about it.
Yeah, so I guess we should just talk about to get a bank account. We currently don't have a UOSU bank account or a UOSU bank that clubs can go to. So clubs have the option to go to whatever bank they want, tell them that they want to make a bank account for a student club, and then the bank representative will tell you, okay, you need a letter or you need this information to give us, and they'll let you know what you need, and then you can reach out to us if you ever need anything from us. What you usually will need is a letter that will state that you are an official club and who from your club can access your bank account, which will be your 2 signing officers. If you want to add a third person, you can also request that. But the process is email us, be like, hey, my club needs a bank account, and either you need a simple one or you need one with special criteria, depending on what your bank has requested. And we usually get that to you in a day or 2 days.
Yeah. So I spoke about this during, I think, the second executive. Okay, I was saying, the first thing that we mentioned during the second executive is that I remember the club letters. Normally they're super easy to sign because CVUO has them ready. But I spoke to the execs, and I was like, look, it could be the signing officers of USU, so Babakar and Noor, president and operations commissioner, or it could be me because it falls under my mandate. And even though I don't have signing authority, and what they did is that they said, okay, you know what, you can sign those bank letters, and I just save them up somewhere, and every time I sign one, I just let them know, be like, hey, by the way, I signed one, just so that, for transparency purposes. And Hassan sends me those on Facebook all the time, and I sign them on the spot.
Yeah, the letters, it's a template. I change the names, and then I send it to Amina. She signs it. It's a very quick, easy process. It worked magic last year. It works magic this year. But usually it's per request. So you have to ask us if you want a bank letter, and then we'll give it to you. And the reason for this is because some banks will ask for special things on your bank letter. We've had scenarios like that, especially in the past, and then we've had to change the letter up. So first contact your bank, tell them you want a bank account for a club, then they'll tell you what to do from then on. And then you can contact us with whatever you need. And then in that same section, it says that funds will be given as electronic transfers or written checks. But we're focusing on electronic transfers here. Right?
Yep.
And in the club funding application, it's very likely we'll be asking for a void check or the information that's on a void check, so that if you do get approved, your money can just easily just go to your bank account without a middle process of someone reaching out to you being like, what's your bank account, and then you replying and then us replying. So
that's one of the things that I wanted to make sure that we had, because the back and forth is it takes forever for us and for clubs, and also I wanted to make sure that once we approve the fundings, we approve them and the money goes away then and there,
Yep,
so
exactly.
that was 2 weeks of when the funding is open, we get all the information we need. And if you have your void check in the future, we can keep it in case you ever get approved for funding. We'll have it,
Yeah.
In either way.
So,
Another note, when you provide us with a void check, make sure that the name of the payee, so like the name of your organization, is written there crystal clear, please.
Yeah. And we'll put that in the form as well.
Yes.
Like make that detailed. So yeah, the idea is to make things as fast and as seamless as possible for both of the clubs, Yosu and us.
And the finance department.
Yeah, so that's Yosu, but yes.
Okay.
So then we have the whole part about making sure that clubs are using the money that we give them for the things that they said they would use them for.
Yeah.
And with that, clubs have to provide written receipts for all purchases after their event happens or after they purchase their equipment. The form that you fill out for club funding will ask you what date your event is or when you plan to buy your equipment, and we will email you, or hopefully you will email us before we even get the chance, giving us all your receipts, proving that you used the money that we gave you for the things that you said you were going to use them for, and not like buying glasses or something.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Like that's, I think like that's the only like back and forth part that we have. Because like hey, clubs, if you are listening, please, we're making the process easy. So if you could just like save up all your receipts once you have them. If you have them like within like the next day when you provided us with, when you were approved for the funding, it'd be good.
Or like when the event happens, right?
When the event happens, exactly. Like, it'd be good because then we don't have to like have that back and forth. If you didn't provide us with the receipts, it might be like a little bit iffy next time you apply for funding.
Exactly.
It's going to be a mess. So that's like the only part that we need to be made easier on this, like the club's part.
Yeah, that part clubs have it all depends on how easy they want to make it for themselves and for us.
Exactly.
And I mean, if we do get a case of like embezzlement going on or people using money that they shouldn't be using for, obviously, then you also would take the proper action depending on the scale. And more than likely it will mean that you don't get funding ever again or are a club. So don't do that.
Yeah, and the Student Services Committee, like the club's code, allows the Student Services Committee to be like very flexible. So like if anything is wrong, the committee will make a decision on that. I feel like I'm threatening clubs right now, but like honestly, I'm just saying to like please be safe and like please be good.
Yeah, just be fair. And you do have an option to request to change what you want to spend the money on after you've been approved. But that also has to be approved. So you can't spend money just by asking. You have to wait till you get approved. So if you do have a change of plans, you have to let us know like ASAP kind of thing.
Yeah. Even like if you like want like, and maybe like I'm wrong, Hassan, correct me if I'm wrong, because if you like see the receipts and like you spend like say you got accepted for $10,000 and you only spent $1,000, we're gonna ask where the other money is gone. So like if you realize that your event is not gonna cost as much as you thought, let us know. Yeah.
And the deadlines for that we'll get to in a second, but it's section 5.2.2 to ask for changes. I guess if you're spending less money, I guess you really don't have to ask. You just have to like give the money back at the end. But if you're spending more money, if you're spending money for something else, like for example, if you wanted to like, I don't know, buy Gucci glasses for your club, but instead you thought you might as well buy a car, you have to let us know, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I'd go with like the latter in the sense of, because like giving the money back is going to be like way more complicated.
Oh yeah, I mean hopefully you guys use all the money that you get.
Yeah, hopefully.
But in the case you get approved for like a shit ton of money and you decide, and you know what, never mind.
I also don't know why, like I said, $10,000. That's not.
Yeah, that's not even possible.
Yeah, that's not even possible.
So that's section 5.1.12. That tells you actually when what's the deadline for your receipts to be given. But hopefully you can give them to us as soon as your event happens, make things easier for everyone. But there are like final deadlines outlined in section 5.1.12.
There's deadlines all over this document.
There's so many deadlines, and we're going to be emailing every club so many times if they're like approaching the deadline.
But like the reason why we pick deadlines is to make sure like instead of like having clubs wonder, we like pick like convenient dates, like deadlines for us and like the year as a whole. And like that way like it kind of like forces the committee to meet by this time, but also like clubs already know.
Yeah, it just makes things so much more organized, because right now clubs apply for funding in February and some of them still don't have money. That's because we didn't have any deadlines last year. And so that's the whole thing with all these dates and deadlines.
Another thing about the club's funding this year, Hassan, which we forgot to mention, it's not going to be open throughout the whole year.
Yeah, we're going to get to that as well. It comes in the application process part. I think the next important section is 5.1.14. 14, yeah. Which is a rule that everyone in USO has to follow, not just clubs. And well, like, we know from experience that it can be annoying, but it is like a good system where if you're buying something that costs more than $1,000, you have to provide 3 different receipts, which is 3 different options that you considered for that purchase, and to show us that you picked the best option. This is to make you guys more conscious about the things you're buying, because sometimes people can get carried away, be like, I have so much money, might as well spend on whatever. So that's that. And when you're providing your receipts, you have to provide, for any purchases that are more than $1,000, you have to provide 3 different receipts from 3 different options and show us that you picked the best one. This is something that everyone has to follow, so let's just all, buckle up and do it.
Yeah, a lot of things, like, I think a lot of clubs might think that we're being a little too strict with clubs funding this year. But it's honestly, like, for the best.
Yeah, and that rule, like, CVUO has to follow it, you have to follow it, everyone has to follow it in the organization, so. And I hated doing it last year, or, like, our team hated doing it last year, but you gotta do what you gotta do. 5 point... transparency wise, like, exactly. It's good. Yeah, it makes you more conscious of the things that you're and
it helps us, like, if you go the extra mile to have, like, those, I mean, like, now you have to according to the club's good, but if you go to, like, through the extra mile of, like, doing that, the committee is going to consider you first,
like, for the next time, right?
Yeah.
And then you have to, so for all events that get approved, you have to provide a list of attendees that also attended your event. This can be their names, their emails, whatever information you collect, but you have to collect some information. And I think it'll be pretty easy for most of you to do this, because most of you sell tickets, and when you're selling tickets, you're collecting that information anyway. So you can just send us that information, or you can send up a sign-up sheet at the front of your event. Obviously, you can figure that out on your own. Most of you are very capable. So 5.1.16 is also a very new and unique thing that we really wanted to do, which was all approved funding is made publicly available with the names of clubs and associations that received the funding, as well as the amount. This is strictly for transparency's sake, and to avoid the situations that have happened in the past. One famously, testing restaurants. So this document will publish as soon as we can, as soon as the thing gets approved, and we can put it together, and it will tell everyone that a certain club got approved for X amount, certain club got approved for X amount, and in the future, no one can, pick a favorite and give one particular club $18,000 and give hundreds of clubs no money, because that would look extremely shady on that document. So that's the main reason for this. Yeah. Oh,
I just I guess, yeah, and, like, Hassan, I think we're still publishing the list of the fundings that were sent to this year, right?
Yeah, so the last year ones we'll be publishing as well, but the last year ones don't follow all these rules. Yeah. But we're doing it anyway for transparency's sake, just to let you know that what happened last year.
It's also, like, to make clubs, like, more conscious. If you're gonna, like, make an event and apply for funding for it, make sure it's good.
Exactly.
Because, like, students are gonna be like, oh, you gave them this amount of money and we didn't even benefit from their, like, event. Yeah. Avoid that.
Exactly. So a lot of, like, transparency, a lot of, like, that kind of thing going on here. We're not going to publish any rejection names. Like, if a club's funding gets completely rejected and has $0, we won't say the club's name, just because that seems like a bad reputation for that club. But we will list how many clubs didn't get any money.
It also like puts us like it kind of like it puts like the committee to be like, oh, like you refused a lot of fundings, maybe you should be a little more lenient or all that stuff. Mm-hmm. So like that's more like on us actually. Yeah. And on the clubs. And
like this is something we want. Like right now, I mean, I consider Amina to be fair, and I consider her committee to be fair. But we're thinking about like into the future, 5 years from now, if we get more like, less fair people, they will be combated when the documents go public. So that's the kind of thing we're thinking like long term here as well. EOSO obviously reserves the right to revoke any funding on any updated information. That's kind of general stuff. Then we get into the application process, which
the fun stuff.
Yeah, so this is like the what problem. We're like 25 minutes in. This is probably what the clubs need to know the most. But so it's gonna happen on the CVUO website. It's gonna be through a simple form, one form, just like how we do club registration, which has worked really well.
It's exactly the same process.
Exactly, just one form you to fill out, submit, and you're good to go for the rest of the application. And so, like Amina was saying at the beginning or near the middle, that we have deadlines on when club funding will open and close. Unlike last year where it was just open when it opened and just left. It will open on certain days and finish on certain days depending on the semester. The one upcoming, when this podcast is being recorded, is the September 1st opening of the funding. And
yeah, it closes on the 15th.
On the 15th, yeah. So you guys will have 15 days to fill out the form and send in your application.
Wait, let's talk about why we decided to put it other than for organization purposes.
Mm-hmm.
Why we decided to put it just at the beginning of each semester, because we did speak about how it's good in the sense that it encourages clubs to kind of prepare their events ahead of time and have a plan.
Yep.
And just to be more organized in that sense.
Yep. And it just makes sense to do it at the beginning because that's when clubs are also making their budgets and all that kind of stuff. Yep.
Oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna say that it's very obvious, but there's a funding application for each semester, fall, winter, and summer, and they cover events that happen in that semester and the following semester. Yeah. So, for example, the one that's coming up right now, it would cover events happening in the fall and in the winter. Just to give you guys a head start on your event planning and getting those things all put together. Really look at those. Yep, go ahead.
I was gonna just say about the whole a dates thing. Mm-hmm. The code clearly states it. Preferably we would not change it. I want to force the committee and I don't want to force the committee. I want to force myself to work around those dates. Sorry, committee members, if you're listening. Because like I said, the code is very allows the committee and also obviously the clubs flexibility in the sense of we can change the dates if you want to.
Yeah, the services committee has the option to change those dates if needed.
If needed, and we need to give a 2 weeks notice.
The whole idea with the dates is that we have them. What they are is less important. So if the Student Services Committee can change the dates, but they still have to have
what
dates.
They are is also important.
It's true, that's also important, but having them I think is the most important. Definitely look at those dates. I mean, with the way CVUO goes, we'll probably make so many posts on social media that club funding is coming, apply.
Yeah, you would know.
Yeah, but just make sure for your own sake, for your organization, to read the code, find those dates. Because if you have an event happening in the summer, maybe you want to apply for the winter funding, the summer funding, the fall funding. It all depends on a club's logistics. So it's up to you guys when you're to know those dates and just stay ahead of them. Then we go into what the form will ask, which is pretty self-explanatory stuff. You guys will need a budget to submit. And we talked about this, the more clear the budget, the more likely it is you'll get approved, just because it's safer for the UOSU to give money to something that's more organized, more detailed.
Yeah, but we also mentioned that we'll have a budget template kind of thing, just how we do with club registration. So we said, it's exactly the same thing. It's going to be smooth sailing for both. But we're going to provide a budget template in the sense of clubs can just follow that.
Yeah, to help you guys out kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. So that they have a guideline.
Mm-hmm. Even then though, the budget template we provide will be a very bare minimum, this way you should have at least. Yeah. But if you go above and beyond and get really detailed, if you can, of course, because a lot of clubs can't, but if you can, it will make, I think it would make it more reassuring for the committee to be okay, we know exactly what every dime is being spent on, so we should help this club out.
Because it's kind of a prediction of the event.
Yeah, exactly.
To be clear, we're not telling you to tell us what you spent money on. Mm-hmm. We're telling you to tell us what you're going to spend money on. We'll give you the money, and then later on we'll get the receipts back.
Yeah, so that we should be clear on that, yeah.
Yeah, so we're not gonna ask, like, you're not gonna go by and ask for like a reimbursement /
Yeah.
a refund. No.
Which is what the SFUO had, whereas like you had to spend money first, and then they would reimburse you.
Which
But
is not
for
affordable.
us, yeah, we're gonna give you the money, then you spend the money, and then you just give us the receipts to make sure that you spent the money on the right thing.
Because if you don't have the money, then where else are you gonna
exactly.
get it?
A bank loan.
Yeah, painful. No, it's not.
Yeah, no. And I guess this would be a good time to point out that there's two types of applications that you can do. One is for an event, and one is for equipment. This was super unclear last year, but we'll make it clear on the form this year, which is that one, you can apply for an event that you're going to do in the fall or the winter, or if you're a club that needs a speaker or, a tent for your outdoor activities, or like a soccer ball for your soccer club. You can apply for equipment as well. We're going to try to make that as clear as possible.
Yep.
Yep.
There's like I think like the code. I think specifically the code is like about more like events, but like for material and equipment, you just have to like be like, here's what we need and here's why we need it, and here's how like the students are going to benefit from it. So that's more like the very much case by case basis, because like there are like many rules that we can put around that.
Yeah, we have some rules where it's like you have to tell us where you got it from or where you're going to put it. Just because if you find out someone's buying like LED lights like for their room, that will not get approved. I don't know why I use that. It's such an arbitrary example, but
I would love it.
Okay, we'll try to speed up because I want this to be not super long, and we also talk about tiers and stuff. But next we have like a process of how your application will be approved from our end, which is going to be very like almost identical to how it happens with club registration, where it's CVUO reviews it first. We make sure you're following all the rules that are strictly outlined in the club's code. We're not making any decisions on if you should get money or not. We're only making the decisions on if you followed all the rules.
And then, if you follow the code,
Yeah, and as most of you know, if you apply for the SLA, that will contact you before the deadline to let you know, hey, this event will get approved. Do you want to change it up a little and apply again so that you actually do get approved? So we'll give you that heads up. Obviously, if you apply on the deadline, on the date, that will make things a lot difficult for you and for us to contact you. So most of you do apply on the deadline, but if you don't, it'll make things easier. And then we send out all the clubs that did follow the rules to Amina or the services committee, and then they will have their meeting, and then they will decide who gets how much money and who doesn't get money, that kind of thing. They'll be making those big boy decisions.
Yeah, because like the way we're just gonna decide, it's just gonna be like we're not gonna be looking at the rules just like we do with club registration. We're just gonna say like, do we think that this is the best way to spend the money? That's it.
Exactly, and like moving money around and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And the services committee will take care of that. Okay, so then we can talk about tiers, which is we gotta be trying to be organized with how we talk about this because I don't want to confuse anyone.
Yeah, because.
Okay,
let's go through like 5.3, straight to 5.3.
Yeah, so we're at 5.3 now, different types of funding. Now, Amina and I got creative with the names. Instead of just making it tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3, we thought we'd make things a little bit more exciting. And we did it on emerald names. So we got tier emerald, which is the highest, tier ruby, and tier sapphire, which is the cheapest, or the lowest.
We classified them from most expensive to least expensive.
Yeah, exactly. We found the most expensive emerald you could buy, and the most expensive ruby, and the most expensive sapphire, and then ranked them.
And the colors are the colors of the gemstones too.
Exactly. So we were just trying to make things more fun for ourselves.
Yeah.
Because this stuff gets quite boring quite fast.
And it's a one policy.
Yeah, exactly. So the reason, so I'm going to talk about the reasoning for this. As far as I know, other universities don't do this. So it's like a thing that we're doing for the first time. So I hope it works. But the reasoning behind it, and it was completely randomly brought up during one of our meetings, but last year we had some situations where some clubs got approved for a lot of money and some clubs didn't get approved for any. And some clubs were asking for $20 and they didn't get approved. Yeah, or $50, yeah, just that was an exaggeration. Even if they were asking for $100, that's nothing compared to a $15,000 approval. And then that club for $15,000 almost took up all the club funding budget. For example, I'm not obviously saying that happened. And then the club that wanted $100 couldn't get their $100 to do their events. So we wanted to separate clubs into tiers and be like, if you're going to apply for a lot of money, you're going to be compared to other clubs that apply for a lot of money. And if you apply for a lesser amount, you get to compare your application with other clubs that apply for lesser amounts. And I think this makes sense.
Organization for us too.
Yeah. And but my main goal was like to help out the smaller clubs, because there are a lot of clubs that are just like 20 people that get together every week to do like play games or, talk about their writing, like the writing club, for example, that does that, right? They don't need
the gaming club too.
Exactly, yeah.
Board games.
They don't need $10,000. They just need like $100 to get maybe, a new board game that they can play. So to compare like a club that's doing a huge gala and asking for $5,000 versus a club that's asking for $100 in the same kind of next to each other doesn't make any sense to me. So that's why this is all separate. And then the next few clauses talk about like how much money each tier can apply for. The max.
The highlight of this, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
Like the highlight of this is the max, because like we looked at the numbers from last year and like we wanted to like give a chance to everyone, because like a big chunk of the club's funding would go to like just one club and would have nothing for other clubs. But yeah.
So now there's limits. We have exactly, that's exactly right. So we have a $5,000 limit on what you can apply for. But I know some clubs are gonna be like, "What? No, I wanted $10,000." But that's just the way it is. You can apply twice. So if you're doing an event in the winter, you can apply for fall and winter, that kind of thing. But at once you get to only apply for $5,000 max, and then it kind of goes down to like $3,000 or $2,500, then $1,000, and that's kind of how it works. We also want clubs to be like consciously aware that they shouldn't be applying for $5,000 if they don't need $5,000, because then you'll be compared to other clubs that do need it, and there's a lesser chance of you getting that money, as opposed to if you apply for like $1,000 and we're compared to other clubs that were applying for $1,000.
It's also like for the student services committee. So like when we're talking about like the clubs in like tier like Sapphire, we will not be as strict because they're smaller amounts. Whereas when we're talking about like tier Emerald, which is like the the bigger one, we're gonna be more strict. So like clubs need to be more aware of that. Like we're gonna be more strict if you ask for a bigger amount. Yeah,
we'll need a more detailed budget and that kind of thing.
Yeah, and we'll ask for a lot more information.
And everything's gonna be I want to emphasize everything's gonna be considered separately. Like I think Amina said, I've told that there's gonna be 3 different meetings.
Yeah.
And each tier is gonna have a certain X amount of money allocated to it that cannot be moved around.
Like even on that, so I think like by the time this is going to be out, well, I guess the committee already met. I'm not gonna, am I supposed to mention how much you have?
We'll save that for the end. It's like a little
Well, it's good. That's why we did percentage, which is good. So the committee like just met like yesterday or like 2 days ago. And instead of like putting amounts, we thought we'd put percentages that could be like changed based on the year. Yeah. And since like this year is very unique, and like, my reasoning behind it, and Hassan somehow disagrees, but my reasoning behind it, and like the committee agrees too, is that since like this year, not a lot of students are on campus during the fall. We also like gave like a lot of fundings. We were funding a lot of events for 1 week because we had like the whole event proposal thing going on, which is like a really big deal. It never happened before. We thought that not a lot of clubs will be applying for funding, but also virtual events are super cheap. Like I looked at the proposals, and like even in-person events, the maximum that you can have outdoor is 100 and indoors is 50. So like all to say, and like for like the winter semester, maybe like the health restrictions are going to be lifted up. And the summer, obviously, students are not here. Clubs are not, like, a lot that active. So the, final result was that we will allocate 30% of the fund to the, fall semester, 60% of the fund to the winter semester, and 10% to the summer semester. But all, keep it in mind that whatever is left from the winter semester is going to be, moved to the following semester. And if we find that there's more demand during the fall semester, the committee can meet again and reallocate things within the application period. So again, it's very flexible. The code is flexible around this. Like, we wanted to make sure that whatever numbers we put out, they're not final, you know? So, yes.
Yeah. Also, I mean, I was talking about that each tier will also have like money allocated separately. The reason, and the services committee can also not. So if you get like a lot of Emerald applications and no Ruby applications, that's gonna be an unfortunate situation, because the student services committee cannot move money from the Ruby application to the Emerald application just because there are more Emerald applications. The only case that would be is if there's like no Ruby applications, is a lot of money left over. That's the only case that would happen. This is, again, like the main emphasis to make sure clubs are being conscious of what they're applying for, and to also make sure that the smaller clubs are being taken care of on like fairly.
Oh, to say that, like Hassan said, an amount for each tier is going to be allocated.
Yep.
And it'll go based on the applications this year.
Yep. And I think a big emphasis should be made that a lot of the stuff we're doing right now is based on like guesswork, because we're like assuming that certain clubs will apply in a certain semester, or we'll need more money for certain tiers. But the system is in place, and depending on how the applications come in, and if we're completely wrong, it'll be automatically be fixable for the next semester or for the next year. So in the long term, like eventually with enough like experimental data, it would be like almost perfect, kind of.
And also, like, well, I'm not gonna like jump ahead and like mention the big news, but all to say that this like whole system, in a way, like the moving like from a semester to another one, kind of like secures the fact that we'll always have some sort of like money for clubs funding, you know?
Yeah.
Like, it ensures that whatever money is left from clubs funding, it's gonna go to the next year and going on. Like,
yep.
I mean, I guess until maybe if 1 year we don't have that much money, but for now.
Yeah, like another pandemic or something.
No.
But I think that was kind of that's the end of the club funding code, and we've been through it. The big news. Do you wanna?
Can I do it?
Yeah, go for it.
Can I say it?
Yeah, go for it.
Like
go for it.
news. Okay,
big news.
So the big news is that how much money do we have allocated on the budget this year for clubs funding? I mean, like a drum roll, please.
Drum roll. Oh god, that's gonna sound on the recording.
No, so this year we have $200,000 for clubs funding, which is almost 10 times what we had last year, and it's never been this amount. And so it took a while, honestly, to like get this amount, to be honest, if I'm like very fair. A lot of meetings with our director of finance, a lot of, kind of like just small negotiations here and there. Like, since the day I started my mandate, that was all I spoke about. It was like the club's code and club's funding and CVUO. Because I wanted to make sure that we are set on that side. And like, I spoke to Bernard, the director of finance. Shout out to him, because honestly, if it wasn't him, like, honestly, this would have been so hard to achieve.
Yes.
But he asked, like, how many clubs do we have on campus? And I said, well, it's like 325 to like 350, and growing. Like, we're having more. And so, like, the idea behind it is that he wanted to make sure that whatever money we have, it allows each club to have some part of it, so that there's like equal chances, and yeah, so like Bernard moved some things around in the club's funding, and we did that. And the funny thing about this is that I forgot that was the amount that we negotiated for some reason, because we spent like a whole week just talking about the budget, and it was a pain, especially because like Yosu's budget was like in a lot of deficit at the beginning before like we fixed things around and moved things around. So to me, it was like almost impossible, and I forgot about it. I was like, okay, the budget is approved, and the board approved this.
How much was the deficit again? You said $200,000.
Oh, like 150 or something.
So like just the amount of club funding we have. So if we didn't have any club funding.
Yeah. So anyhow, and like I forgot about that, and I remember like I had to schedule this like student services committee to talk about this, and I said, okay, I need the number. And I called Vinal, the director of finances, and I was like, hey, like, can you just remind me what was the amount that we approved? He said, yeah, it's $200,000. And I was like, oh, are you sure? And I was like, yeah, it's in the budget. And I was like, okay. And during the services committee meeting, during the services committee meeting, I checked the first time and the second time, and I like moved the motion to like the end of the meeting because I really did not believe it. And I made Noor, our operations commissioner, check twice and call Vinal. And it was $200,000. And I was like, wait, how did I just like not notice this how did I forget about this? This is like huge. This is big. And I like, me and Hassan kind of like made a calculation that says, like with this amount of money, if you have like 350 clubs, well, I guess we do. But with 350 clubs, all of them get almost $600.
Yeah, so the funny thing is I actually knew about it. It was $200,000 since our first meeting with Bernard. I don't know how you forgot, but...
I don't know how I forgot either.
But yeah, so with the math, we have like 350 clubs approaching, and like Amina was saying, it's almost $600 for every single club if we wanted to give every single club money. And a lot of them are not going to need $600. So we're highly encouraging every single club to apply for something, because there's a very good chance that as long as you're not like really dumb with your budget, you'll get your money. So yeah, this is, I mean, like the SFUO never even offered this much money as far as I know. And last year we weren't able to offer this kind of money because last year's budget was like $25,000 or something like that.
Yeah, that's why I didn't believe it. I was like, wait, like, are we sure? And like I said, I forgot about this, and I don't know how I forgot. Because like this is big news. This never happened. Like this is.
So it's gonna be and hopefully this sets like a precedent for every year where it's like that amount. Just because, you know, I feel like 300 different clubs, thousands and thousands of students, they kind of deserve that kind of money. And I mean, technically,
and like this year, I feel like there won't be that many like big events.
Mm-hmm.
So with the whole like money being like automatically moved to the like following semester, and like since we started off this year with like this big amount and it's Corona time, there's gonna be a lot of funding left, I know, for like next year. And if we like allocate the same funding like next year of $200,000, it's gonna like keep accumulating, and we'll always have clubs funding.
Yes, it's almost like we've overshot, so like now we're all like set for a good time.
Yeah, exactly. Like $100,000 this year would have been more than enough.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, any $100,000 would still been like 4 times we had last year, so we would have been like super happy about that. But the fact that we have $200,000 with Corona, so most events are gonna happen like when Corona's gone, hopefully in the winter or in the summer. So it's gonna be like almost a third or less than a third of if you'd like to do the math there. But yeah, I think
this is like a good year for clubs. I think like
apart from like the pandemic.
Well, yes, but like with one week happening, and like we are like fully funding club events for one week and giving them the option to just kind of market themselves. We approved 3 in-person events that we're going to be fully funding too. They're actually happening. I got a confirmation today from CNR. We have a new Clubs Good, a new clubs funding process, a bigger budget for clubs funding. CVUO, like the SLA has a bigger budget now, so like more students can attend the SLA, hopefully when it happens, not if it happens. So I'm looking at it and I'm like, you know what? I think it's a big year for clubs.
Yeah, and it's a great year for us to like, I mean, the pandemic has one positive, which is that it's a great like test period for us to like test all these big changes out. Because and then next year, once everything, you know, if we also have $200,000 and the clubs are applying for all of it, we'll be way more, or not we, but like whoever's doing it will be way more prepared.
Yeah, and like with all like the records being kept, obviously like I'm doing my part as far as like the committee goes, and you're doing your part as far as like the whole like logistics of it. I think like, no offense to whoever is gonna join in next, they would be dumb to change the process.
I feel like it'd be so much harder for them to change it than to just like do it
Yeah.
the right way or do it the way we have. Unless they're like some mad genius and they have a much better process. In which case, all the power
it took
to
us
them.
like all summer to like you remember how many times we met and just like you spoke about clubs funding and just kept brainstorming ideas, and then we're like, oh, the tiers one, and it was like not good, and then we had like different ideas and all of them were like sounded bad. We just I think had to pick one and like believe in it.
Oh,
I don't know.
I don't know. Maybe you had bad ideas.
Oh, you don't remember? We
I-
met a bunch of times to discuss clubs funding.
Well, yeah, you remember I was like, let's just not talk about
And
it
remember,
until
like, the first time? Epiphany?
exactly. Yeah, we just gotta like sit, sleep, wait for an epiphany to happen, get a dream or something, and then things just always work out.
Yeah,
I mean-
I think we bought ourselves some time in the sense of, like, the first thing we did was, like, upload the club's code. And we had that approved by the board. And then almost immediately
Yeah.
we started talking about clubs funding. And the execs were kind of, like, iffy about it because, like, the tier system is new. Like,
yeah,
it's new.
And that's what I mean. That was our epiphany. Like, we were literally just talking about something completely different. Like, and they're like, wait a minute, a tier system.
Yeah, and the more we spoke
And then we
about it,
stuck
the more
by
we're
it.
like, yeah. Well, that's like
Yeah.
maybe a lesson for clubs. If you have an idea, stick by it.
That's what I do. Every time I have an idea, I just go full force. That's what I'm saying. I couldn't have had a bad idea. Otherwise, that would have been the idea we're going with.
And the thing is, like, the way I work is I'm like, okay, let's make it happen, you know? I'm like, I don't say, oh no, like, let's think about it. Where I'm like, okay, it's an idea. Let's just go all the way with it and see where it takes us. And
Yep.
I think so far that was good.
We'll find out very soon. But I think that brings us to the end of the podcast.
So unfortunate. I hope people listened because this is big news.
Yeah, I'm gonna put this. Hopefully, try to put this on the club funding page and be like, if you need information, please listen to this kind of thing.
And not just that, if clubs need like help with the logistics of the events that we approve, I mean, I can help out with that. I guess you still can do that, but anyhow.
I mean, if you want, but I think that's it. So club funding for now open on September 1st. Apply because there's a lot of money to give out, and there's a good chance you'll get it. If you have any questions, you know where to contact us.
Please
hopefully.
read the code, like club's funding policy. Like, please, actually, it's not that hard. It's crystal clear. Just read it.
Be aware of those dates ahead of time. Yeah, prepare a nice budget.
And get a bank account.
Get a bank account, yes. Get a bank account. That should be the first thing you do if you're thinking about getting funding, because sometimes a
Figure the
bank
big
will
and-
stall you.
That's true. Like, you have 10 days now. Like, what, 10 days? 11 days?
Yeah, like we're approaching September 1st pretty fast. So
If you need a club letter, let us know.
yes, we'll get them to you very fast. But I think for now we're gonna cut it and just say bye. Bye everyone.
Bye, everyone. If you have any questions, reach out.